You are now watching The Meech.
I recently did a video showcasing how you can customize your Nintendo Switch Pro controller. The process itself couldn't be any easier, and it brings a lot of personality to your controllers. We did a customized Splatoon 3 Pro controller, and I gotta say, it looks incredible. But the thing is, it's not just limited to the Pro controller, because you can even customize your Joy-Cons. I've showcased a lot of my custom Joy-Cons on the channel. I've been customizing them since May of 2021, and at this point, it's not so much of a hobby, it's more of a lifestyle. But considering how much I've showcased them, I'm sure there have been many of you wondering, how can I customize my Joy-Cons? And I'm here to show you how you can bring some personality to your standard Joy-Cons. When you first look at them, it may seem like a challenging project, considering that the Joy-Cons are relatively small and they have a lot to their inner workings, but I can assure you that the process is actually quite easy to do. As long as you take your time and go through the tutorial, you are set to have some amazing looking Joy-Cons. So come on to the Gator Garage as we learn the joy of Joy-Con customization. As with any customization or project, it's a good idea to have a working space with an ample amount of space. You'll ideally also want to have some cups or containers to put the screws in, just to stay organized. Keep it clean. For our custom Joy-Cons, we'll be using Extreme Rate Splatoon 3 shells. They were kind enough to provide them, but I've sworn by Extreme Rate shells since I started customization, and what's cool is that you can get a discount by using the code DEMEECH when you buy from their store. Links are in the description. They'll come with most of the tools that you'll need, but you'll ideally want a pair of tweezers and a prying tool like a spudger or guitar pick, though fingernails are often all you need for prying. Now let's turn these basic Joy-Cons into something splat-tacular. Let's start where we left off, quite literally because the left Joy-Con is off and ready to be customized. For the first part, you'll want to remove the 4 tri-wing screws securing the Joy-Con together. Nintendo has been using these sort of proprietary screws for decades, but this is the only part where you'll need the tri-wing screwdriver. But once again, the kit comes with it. Once that is taken care of, you can proceed to gently pry apart the controller. Don't use force, just gently work around the controller until you can tell the controller is ready to pop open. From here, you can open it sorta like a book, which suits this procedure. It's a piece of cake to make a pretty Switch. Make your Switch amazing, you gotta do the cooking by the book. You know you can't be lazy. Now before doing any more disassembly, remove the battery. You do this by gently pulling it away from the connector. When batteries are involved, removing them is always one of the first steps. Putting it aside for now as we move on to the controller itself, we'll want to bring out the Phillips head screwdriver to remove the rail from the housing. There's a button in the back, so make sure to put it away until we use it again during the reassembly. Next, you're going to want to remove the screws securing the middle portion of the controller to the front. The ones you'll remove are the screws that are secured by the holes. The other 2 screws securing the motherboard will be removed later. This is where you'll encounter ribbon cable galore. Ribbon heaven, if you will. What you'll want to do from here is unlock the ribbon cable latches for the ZR button, the analog stick, and the minus button. It's always a good idea to do this step before unscrewing anything else. You can, however, keep the SL and SR ribbons in place. I find it much easier to go that route. You'll then want to unscrew the minus button cable as well as unscrewing the analog stick. Now it's time to unscrew the motherboard, and from here, you have successfully deshelled your Joy-Con. Now it's time for the fun part, making this rudimentary red Joy-Con Splatoon fresh. What's cool is that the Extreme Right set includes not only yellow, but purple buttons as well. It's like they made this specifically for me, considering how much I love Wario and Waluigi. Now that would be a fun Splatfest, but there seemingly needs to be a third option. If we're going the Mario Kart route, we could have Baby Wario or Metal Wario. And yes, both of those are actual real characters. And from here, you'll want to transfer the dust shield from the original shell to the new one. It already has adhesive, so it'll stick on with no problem. From here, you're going to want to put in the buttons. They'll only align in one position, so you'll know they're in the correct spot when they're completely flushed in. Then you'll want to put the rubber covers back on. And from here, it's just a matter of screwing the motherboard back on and reinstalling the minus cable and analog stick. What I do with all my custom Joy-Cons is replace the stock analog sticks with higher quality ones, usually from Amazon. This step is completely optional, but I recommend considering it. Once everything is reinstalled, you can reinsert the ribbon cables and lock them into place. Now let's spring into action with the L button. Since we're using the new buttons, you'll want to place a spring onto the L button, then place it back in the shell. There's one more ribbon cable to take care of, and that's for the ZL button. Take the middle part of the original shell and pry off the ZL button. Below it you'll find a ribbon cable, and you'll want to unscrew it, and from here, install it into the new shell. For the ZL button, there are two springs that need to be aligned. These springs can be a bit finicky, but just keep trying until they align. Tweezers can help, but they're not needed for this step. Once everything is in place, you'll want to insert the ribbon cable back into position. Make sure the gold contacts are facing down. And from here, it's just a matter of screwing everything back together. The next step is optional, but I'll show you how to do it anyway. We'll also be replacing the SL and SR buttons with the new ones. Unscrew the contacts and take out the original buttons. Then replace them with the new ones, and after that, you can put on the rubber covers and screw everything back. Now you'll want to place the rail button and screw the rail back on. You can then reinstall the battery. Now close the shell and screw it back together, though ideally, I like to place the shell together and then screw it back on once I test all the buttons. The kit comes with 4 Phillips head screws that are of much higher quality. I'd highly recommend using these over the stock tri-wing screws. And we're done! You now have a brand new left Joy-Con. Now let's move on to the right Joy-Con. Moving on to the right one, the process is mostly the same, but there are a few other steps. You'll want to get the original Joy-Con and unscrew it. This also requires a tri-wing screwdriver. Then you'll want to pry it apart by using a prying tool or your fingernail, and from here, once again, you'll need to take out the battery. You'll then want to unscrew the rail, and once again, you'll want to get the rail button and then place it aside until reassembly. Now you can unscrew the 3 screws securing the middle portion to the controller. This time around, there are only 2 ribbon cables, but the ZR one is quite short, so you won't want to yank off the middle portion of the controller. You'll want to gently hold the middle portion, and then release the ZR ribbon cable from its connector. And from here, disconnect the analog stick ribbon cable and proceed to unscrew it. The motherboard process is very similar to the left Joy-Con, but there's additional black plastic that adheres to the shell, meaning that you won't want to lift the motherboard after unscrewing it. You'll gently pry it off, and from here, you can take the motherboard out. Now onto the fun part, part 2, replacing the shell. And from here, you'll want to transfer the dust shield from the original shell to the new one. The buttons here are actually easier to place, considering they have letters, but there is an additional component that's optional, but we'll be doing it here. If you want to replace the home button with the custom one, the kit comes with a clear plastic button holder and a home button cover. Just align them like so, and press the cover on. Sometimes you'll need a bit of pressure, but everything should lock into place with ease. Then it's a matter of reinstalling the rubber covers. Since there's a black plastic component, you'll want to make sure everything is aligned properly before screwing on the motherboard. The IR camera has adhesive to it, so I'd install that first, and then position the black plastic component. Once everything is aligned, you can screw back on the motherboard. And for the analog stick, screw it back on, and reinsert the ribbon cable and lock it in place. Just like the left analog stick, I replace it with a higher quality one. There's no ribbon cable for this portion because the contact is directly on the motherboard, but there is a ribbon cable for the ZR button. The process is the same as it is for the ZL button. Pry it off and unscrew the cable, then place it into the new shell and screw it back on. You'll then align the springs with the ZR button and put it back into place. Then you can reinsert the ribbon cable and lock it into place. It is shorter, so it is a bit finicky, but just like before, make sure the gold contacts are facing down and then lock it in. From here, align the spring with the R button and put it back into place. Now you can screw back on the middle tray. Just like the left Joy-Con, this step is optional, but replacing the SL and SR buttons is the same process as before, just a matter of taking off the contacts, replacing the buttons, and putting on the rubber covers. Finally, you'll want to place the rail button and screw on the rail to the new shell back cover, and then you can reinstall the battery. There is an antenna cable that goes here, so make sure it's aligned before closing the shell, and once everything is aligned, you can screw back on the back cover, preferably using the new screws, and just like always, just test out the buttons, close it once, and make sure everything's in order, and then screw it back together. And we're done! We now have the freshest Joy-Cons known to man. Let's take a look at them in action. These Joy-Cons turned out really cool, and I gotta say, I absolutely love the splat design onto the transparent blue. It really gives the controllers a really cool 90s look, which is a lot of what Splatoon feels like it's going for. The 90s aesthetic with the splat, the transparent controllers, all of it is absolutely radical. Hopefully this tutorial helped you make some custom Joy-Cons. I've been doing this for about 2 years now, and I pretty much exclusively use custom Joy-Cons. There are so many possibilities, and the quality is absolutely superb. So how would you customize your Joy-Cons? What color or what design would you like to go for? Anyways, let me know in the comments, and as always, keep calm and da-da on.